There's a universal term in the world today. Maybe it's because of the meme world and the internet. I don't know. But it's known as the boys with a Z. And it refers to the guys you hang out with.
That's true.
It's the boys. You know, you always want to hang out with the boys. You want to play, you want to do stuff with the boys.
With the boys.
That's how it works. And that's how we as guys are. We love hanging out with the boys.
Yeah.
One of those for me was in college, we played Super Smash Brothers, got into it.
Yeah.
Like there was probably about 10 of us that always gathered in my room in front of my TV on the Wii U and played the crap out of that game for like hours and hours. And we, like you'd just be hanging out and you're just like, oh, no. Like people would have thought we were psychotic if they were outside of the hall just listening in. And like then we would go, we'd be like, oh man, we got to go to the cafeteria to get dinner. So we'd all go together. We were like one squad of the boys. And it's always been like that.
Yeah, it is. Has been.
I mean, think of the Magnificent Seven, you know, years and years and years ago. But it was the squad of the boys.
It was.
They all came together for a purpose, and they were the guys for that. And it's this recurring theme because I think it's important.
Yeah, well, you look at people who, throughout history, men had a group of men they often hung around with.
Yeah.
A lot of the founding fathers hung out together like that. You look at war, and a lot of people make brotherhood relationships in war that they keep the rest of their life. Like I've heard stories about guys in World War II who, you know, starting, you know, like in the 50s or 60s, they met every year until they died.
Yeah.
Because they had such a strong bond together.
And whether you have that or not, everyone wants that. Everybody wants their squad, their tribe, their people. And in our world today, that's kind of hard to find.
It is.
It's difficult. So in this episode, we're going to talk about some of the pitfalls that we often run into that keep us from getting to that place, and then give you a pretty good idea on how to get in the right room with the right group of guys to connect on that deeper level. Let's help you find your tribe today on the show.
This is the Thriving Man Podcast with David and Reese Maxwell. These weekly shows are designed to help you remove the confusion from your life and make real progress with your growth. No matter where you are or where you're going, we're here to help you live a life you can be proud of. So welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast.
Welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast, where our goal is to help you build a thriving life and conquer your everyday chaos. I'm Reese.
And I'm David.
And today we are talking about building the squad, building your group, the boys, the power of community.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's talk about some of the pitfalls that keep us from getting there. Because the funny thing is, a lot of the times we start life with a community of guys.
Yeah.
Like in grade school or whatever, unless you were more of a loner, which, you know, some of us were. But it was much easier for some reason back then to have a squad. Whereas today, it feels like there's these giant walls to get there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What do you think is one of those things that is a big barrier for us to be able to get into a tribe community?
One of the biggest, I think, for men today is that desire to be a lone wolf. There's
That's
almost
true.
this iconic thing of, you know, he was a loner. He was out by himself. You look at a lot of the action heroes, they're loners.
Taken.
They're really not if you look at the whole story.
Yeah.
But in the sequence they are. But there's this thing in men that we think, hey, we need to handle it ourselves. We need to do it by ourselves. You know, and you hear people on social media, you know, you've got to be the man, you've got to do. And there's this thing in us as men that I have to have the power myself.
Yeah.
I have to, you know, power up all by myself. When you look, the reality is every man needs other men. Every man needs men in his life, needs other guys, needs support systems. You know, even James Bond, you know, you look at his character. Who did he have? He had Q, who made all his tech for him. And all these, there's always people around. Even if you're quote unquote a lone wolf, you've got a support system.
Exactly.
And I think for us today, as men, we forget that we need other men. We need that, and to quit trying to do it all by ourselves.
Yeah.
because when you have other guys, it just makes you better.
Yeah.
It just does in so many ways.
No, I agree. I mean, I think going to a biblical example, we look at one of the most famous characters in the Bible, David. David was known for being like, he fought in a bunch of wars. He killed Goliath. He did all these crazy feats. He became king.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, that dude's the man. You know, he really did it right. But throughout his story is woven dozens, if not hundreds of people who help him get to that spot.
Yeah.
Like one of the coolest passages in scripture to me as somebody who likes war stuff is his 3 mighty men.
Oh, yeah.
And like the stories are crazy. Like he's got a dude who has his back who killed 900 people in one day with a spear.
Yep.
He's got another dude who fought off an army and his hand froze to his sword. Like he couldn't let go of his sword because he held it and was killing people all day long.
Yeah.
Another guy is back to back with David, and the two of them hold off an entire army together. Just the two. I'm getting chills thinking about it. Like that's so cool.
It does.
But David had those kind of people in his corner. So even somebody who's so famous and has such a big legacy, he didn't get there alone.
Yeah.
There's no way. And the lone wolf syndrome thing, really, it's an illusion.
Yeah, and we have to remember that because our life goes through different seasons, sometimes our friendships will go through seasons.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's going to be rare that you have that one guy who's your best friend for life, especially these days. People move, you know, all kinds of things happen.
You'll have to maintain that very intensely.
You do.
Yeah.
You have to focus. But also, there are seasons of friendships where, you know, just like when you're in elementary school, you had your boys. In high school, you had the guys you hung out with. College, and then after college, depending on where you work, where you live. That's not a bad thing.
No.
You just want to make sure you still have that support system wherever you are. You don't want to move somewhere and say, well, now I'm a lone wolf. No, you got to find that. And again, I like the word you said earlier. It's intentionality.
Yeah.
You got to be intentional to find like-minded men, to find men who are similar to you, who have kind of the same goals and same desires as you. That takes work.
You just brought up such a good thing, finding like-minded men. I think that's one of the reasons that we have such a hard time as guys finding our tribe, especially in adulthood.
Yeah.
In school, all the way up through college, you automatically are put in this room with dozens, if not hundreds of other guys throughout the year. And so you've got a lot of opportunities to be in the same room with other guys. And to be honest, when you're younger, how many interests are you going to have?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like you're not going to be going in and being like, I like the philosophical meanderings of people from the Greek era. No, you're going to be like, I like this show. And
Yeah,
another person
yeah.
will be like, oh my gosh, me too. Let's be friends.
Yeah.
So you're in the same room with these people, and there's this willingness to like connect. You haven't quite yet learned like, oh, I got to be to myself all the time.
Yeah.
And so this is an unfortunate truth, but it is reality in our world today. There aren't that many places for guys to go and meet with other good, like-minded men.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare. I know there used to be like people would go down to, there was a common room where like people would literally go down to this room and just discuss things and talk. Or like the origins of the pub in like the UK.
Yeah.
It just meant a public house.
Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to just be a bar. It's a place for people to go and connect at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so that kind of system, we're just like, nah, Netflix. And so you have to be very, like you said, intentional to even get in the room or get online in a space with other guys that are going to be people of quality.
Yeah. I heard a guy recently on a podcast. He was talking about when he travels, he looks for places to go find people to talk with. And he says, you know, the bar scene is just it's not his thing. You don't want to go to a bar because he's married, he has kids. So he goes to cigar lounges. He's a cigar smoker. And he says, usually it's going to be majority men. And so he doesn't have to worry about women and flirting and all that. But he says he loves just sitting and talking with a bunch of guys. And I thought that was interesting that cigar lounges are actually growing in the country. And I think one of the reasons is guys want to get together.
I think you're probably right.
I think it is. I think a lot of guys, they want to have something in common.
I'll sacrifice the health of my mouth and lungs if I can hang out with other dudes.
If I can hang out with other men.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things, a lot of people are looking for that. And sometimes guys get on the negative side of it, but there is a positive side of it. You know, we often think of the negative where the guys are making the YouTube videos, hey, watch this. And they kind of get each other to do dumb things. But there's a positive side to where you can be sitting with a guy and he says, hey, you're being stupid. And you're like, gosh, you know, you're right. I am being stupid. And I think that's why it's important for us to look for those places to find men to connect with.
Yeah, and it's good to be intentional about who you're going to be friends with. You want them to be people of integrity.
Yeah.
You want them to be quality people. Like, if you have zero desire to have a lifestyle even similar to them, probably shouldn't be in your friend group.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So don't go to the bar where a person's drinking themselves to death and be like, you're my best friend now.
That's
you know,
true.
that's going to be dumb. But if you have that and then you have chemistry, like you guys just enjoy time together.
Yeah.
If you can get just those two things down, you're going to be way ahead of most other guys.
Well, look at sports today. A lot of people get into sports and do all that for the fact of it brings people together. They have something in common. You know, I've become, since marrying Yvonne, a Buffalo Bills fan. And the Bills are having a great year. And so I'm very happy to have jumped on the bandwagon this year. But the thing that's interesting is they have an identity, their fan base, as Bills Mafia.
Okay.
And it's so cool because they're unlike any other fan base. And I'm like, why did I not know about this? Like this past weekend, there was a game and a guy from the other team dropped the pass that would have tied the game in the last second. So they won the game because of it. Well, of course, you feel terrible for the guy. So someone in the Bills Mafia had the idea, this guy represents a charity. Why don't we give to it? They've raised over $90,000 from Bills Mafia fans for this guy's charity to help children with juvenile diabetes.
Wow.
And they did that with Lamar Jackson, the quarterback for the Ravens a couple of years ago, where they gave, I think, over $100,000 to a charity, just their fan base.
Wow.
And there's something about that you're like, gosh, I want to be part of that, you know, because it's bringing people together and they're doing it in a positive way. Of course, the commonality is the team, but from that, so many good things happen.
And that's a great point. You can gather around a topic, but then it become about the people instead of the topic.
Exactly.
I think that's the whole thing for like small groups at churches, which is a great way to get in the room with people that are quality.
Yeah.
But you can gather around, we had a group, appetizers and anime.
We did.
We would watch 2 episodes of anime and talk about it. And like, that's not a deep thing. But then we connected and started talking about life, talking about God, talking about prayer requests and being real about what we were going through. It was huge.
Yeah.
Some of the guys still come up and talk to us about it, and we haven't had it in a couple of years.
Yeah.
But like, I feel closer to those guys because we gathered around a topic. So I think that's a good way to take a step in the right direction. The issue, though, is I think we also live in a world where everyone's about networking.
Yeah.
And networking is essentially building relationships so you can use those relationships to further your agenda.
Yeah.
That's not a great way to build a tribe. You know, like I wasn't with my guys in Teeter dorm playing video games so that I could use them in the future to be able to build my empire.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if I was, they would have avoided me because that's creepy. It's networking, I think, can be a danger if you get stuck in that mindset and see it as I'm using people.
Yeah, and that's the danger. I think that's the key is, am I using people or am I really caring for people? You know, a community cares for each other. Now, can you still help each other? Can you still do those things? Yeah, all the time. But when you just network, what you're doing is you're looking at relationships for what can I get out of it. That's not a relationship. That's a transaction.
Yep. You're right.
And so there's no real friendship built. And no one likes being on the other end of that.
No.
You know, this guy only calls me when he needs something. He never talks to me about how I'm doing. Or you have a friendship where you call when you need something, but when they call you, you don't have time for them.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things we have to be careful. And I think our society today encourages networking. you know, because it's so hyper individualized. It's about you. It's about your world. It's about your life. You know, we see the guys on social media. You've got to be the alpha. You've got to take this. You got to do that. Yeah, you could do all that and be by yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a very bad place. You know, men by themselves do not do well. Men with others around them do well. But when you network, you're only doing things to get something out of it.
You're
I
right.
had a guy one time, he wanted to do the coaching, and so I was coaching him. And the reason he was coaching wasn't necessarily just to get better. And I think it did help him, but he did it because his wife said, I'm going to leave you. And this was after years of her trying to get him to work with her in a relationship, to do the things, and she just had enough. Well, she was going to leave. So then he's like, okay, I want coaching.
Yep.
You know, and I told him, I said, this isn't a guarantee. She's going to stay, and she didn't, because he had gone past the line. He had waited too long because he thought, nah, I'm good.
Yep.
And what we have to do is be careful that we don't look at every relationship we have and think, oh, it's okay, or we don't invest that much into it, and then it's too late. It's gone. It's not there anymore. And that's what, when you do things by yourself, when you're only networking, when you're only thinking of you, not other people, you'll end up alone, and that's a bad place to be.
Yeah. And it's community can help you go through the tough times.
Yeah.
But it can also just make the good times better.
Yeah, it can.
Like,
That's true.
I think in my life, a lot of my favorite memories, a lot of my favorite moments in life are with other people. Very rarely do I look back in my life and be like, dude, that was such an awesome moment.
Yeah.
And it was me by myself, nobody around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Completely solo. Just like, oh,
Yeah.
dude, that was the best.
Yeah.
It's usually sharing that moment with somebody else.
That's true.
Whether that's a family member or some friends. I mean, my goodness, I used to be part of, in our college, we had a worship team that went around to camps. And we went to one in Colorado one time. And we convinced everybody in the camp that we were British. We all faked accents. And so, but what was fun about it is we were all in on it. Like, it's not that I was doing it.
Yeah.
It's that every single one of our team of like 6 to 8 people was all doing British
Get
accents.
out.
Yeah. And so like doing that by yourself, that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But doing that with a whole group, now that's a story. You know, being with the guys, even if you're not being super productive, you can be productive. And that is a huge benefit. But there's also just this time of like, man, me being dumb alone is kind of boring, but
Yeah.
me being dumb with my friends, with my family, with people, that's fun.
Well, and the problem today with our virtual world is you can be by yourself but still be with people.
Yeah.
They think, well, I'm streaming. I've got 1,000 people on my stream, but they're not with you. It's all virtual. It's not real. And there's something about that just kind of feels empty. You're right. You ever see people who are older get together with friends when they were young? What do they talk about? The stories of what they did.
Together.
Yeah. Do you remember in high school we did this? In college we did this. They talked about the past because that's where the memories were. And you're right. Nobody sits around and go, yeah, one day I was on the couch. I watched a lot of Netflix.
Whoa, dude. That's
I know.
crazy.
It's like, unless they're saying, I binge watched a whole show in one day. And you can kind of brag on that. But that's not like one of the highlights of your life.
No.
No.
That's not on your deathbed. You're like, I remember when I binged that show in one day.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I invested my time in that.
I know. I watched the whole One Punch Man in one weekend, all episodes,
Yeah.
Okay, great. But is that really what you're going to talk about on your deathbed?
No.
I don't think so.
No. And it makes those good things better when you do them together.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you how much I've played Super Smash Brothers alone since college.
Yeah.
A few times a year, maybe.
Yeah.
A few times a year. To where it was every single day with the guys.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just about the game.
Yeah.
It was about hanging out. And I think everybody needs that.
Yeah. they do.
Everybody does.
Well, it makes life more enjoyable when you're not by yourself. Being by yourself is okay. Sometimes you need that. You want to do some things by yourself. You want to regroup.
Yeah.
But all of us need community. Even introverts need their own community.
Absolutely. I think a lot of time introverts get tired of community because they're thinking about how they're going to have to perform to be accepted by the community. oh, I'm going to have to say this. I'm going to have to say that. I'm going to have to try and be nice now. I'm going to have to try and X, Y, Z. But when you get a friendship that goes beyond surface level, that expectation and shallowness to it falls away.
Yeah.
So it's worth the investment because you will get past that point where it's almost a social game.
Yeah.
Because that's just part of it. You
is.
have to be kind and you have to say the right stuff and not, make somebody angry. But once you guys get to know each other, that takes a backseat by far.
Well, it is. And doing things with people, even things that are hard. Like when I started doing triathlons, one year I joined this group of people who we all trained together for the same race. This one person, this woman who was a kind of a professional athlete, she gave us all training regimens and helped us and gave us tips and tools. And so we did bike riding together, we trained together. And so the day of the race, it was kind of cool because you weren't necessarily by yourself. Now in a triathlon, you're all by yourself the whole time, but you knew other people there. So when you finished, you were like, hey, you saw a person who finished before you, but then you'd wait around for the people who were after you to say something to them. So there was just kind of a camaraderie, and it just made the race a whole lot more fun. Yeah. I've done plenty of races by myself, and when you finish, you're kind of like, well, I guess I can go now. But when you do it with people, people, it makes it more fun, and I think life is just that way.
Yeah, and I love that you said going through the difficult things together, it can even be more enjoyable with people.
Yeah, it can.
And that's kind of our tip to you guys during this season is going to be to do, like we've been talking about the 21-day turnaround.
Yeah.
The community element that we have integrated into it, I think, is one of the best parts about it.
I think so too.
Because what we have challenged, and you can go back to previous episodes to listen to all the details, but one of the things is a challenge to post in the Thriving Man Facebook group about what you're grateful for. And for this past month, I've been doing it, you've been doing it, but then a few of our guys have been doing it. And one guy who we didn't even know he watched our stuff.
Yeah.
At least I didn't.
No,
I had no idea that he watched our stuff. But he jumped in. And he's been going for it. And I've gotten to see, like, we've all been posting pictures and sharing with each other what we've been doing. And it really makes it so much better to be able to be like, I'm not doing this alone. I'm with the guys, and to be able to enjoy that level of relationship. Because you know that in Thriving Man, the basic values are there.
Yeah.
Spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. We're not perfect by any means.
No.
But we're trying to grow in those 4 areas.
Yeah.
And to have new people in that and to share that journey together, I think is a big part of why we do what we do.
Yeah. And in Proverbs, it talks about, getting together, your iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing community does. Because for me, having that sense of accountability has also helped me each day think about, what am I doing? What am I saying to people? What am I grateful for? And did I make sure to read my proverb that day? Those things. Did I get the 30 minutes of exercise? And you find yourself wanting to meet that goal. So you get that little bump of motivation that you normally, like we've just had a cold snap. Well, when it's 25 degrees outside, you don't want to go walk outside. You don't want
to exercise, no.
But you're like, I got to do it because I'm got to post that I did it.
Yep.
And so it's one of those things that it really does help you. The accountability side of it, it gives you a community to share with, but it also gives you that way to, I'm going to sharpen myself because I got brothers counting on me.
Exactly. And shout out to you, Philip, for diving in head first and absolutely going for it.
Yeah, it was great.
And Grant, I know you're listening at some point. Send this to Philip and encourage him.
Yeah.
Because he's been killing it.
Yeah,
what a G. He's just so awesome. So celebrating those milestones together, I think, is another thing.
Yeah.
This was so interesting. So we've got a group of men called the Vanguard. The Vanguard essentially is guys who throughout the year are meeting twice a month together on Google Meet. And we're discussing our goals. We're discussing life. We're doing question and answers. It's a community of guys trying to be better. It's the next level of what we're challenging you to do with the 21-day turnaround tribe. We want you to get into a community like that, or even in that community. But while we were in there, we discussed with each other, and this came up to the surface when we were talking about our goals for this quarter. People don't know how to celebrate wins.
Yep.
They don't know how to celebrate progress. Almost every guy.
Yeah.
We had a little segment that Grant created of like, what goal am I going to do to celebrate this? and almost nobody had filled it out. They'd filled every other part out, but they were like, I don't know. Like I always learned that progress is just a good thing for its own sake.
Yeah.
But we're challenging each other to also celebrate those wins. Same thing's happening with the 21-day turnaround. When you see another person do it on a difficult day, you're like, great job.
Yep.
You did awesome.
Yeah.
And they can tell you that when you pushed through.
Yeah.
It helps us also give each other and ourselves credit.
Yeah.
Because we just tend to not. We tend to be like, oh, I should do this. And
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, that's how guys are. We we're task oriented. Let's get it done. Okay, it's done. Now let's move on ahead. We're not really great at celebrating. We're not good at celebrating ourselves, or when other people celebrate us, sometimes it makes us uncomfortable. But it does make you feel good when someone just goes, hey, attaboy.
Yeah.
Hey, good job. You're like, yeah, that was a good job. And that's okay. And that's what community does. And that's why it's so important, because it brings that element to our lives. Because if we're by ourselves, we get into our own heads. We overthink things. And I think a lot of guys, that's why they feel lonely. That's why they feel depressed, is because they're lacking that community of someone coming along and saying, hey, you're better than this. And hey, good job on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So our challenge to you, join the 21-day turnaround, because you can go in on a community that'll be there. If you want bonus points, if you got a friend who also needs to grow, invite them and go through it together.
Yeah.
Because then you also get not only the digital support system that's already there, you also get the physical support system of somebody that you already know or just that's nearby to go through that together. Here's the truth, y'all. Lone wolves are usually the ones that die.
Yep.
If you go look out into the wild, the lone wolf is the one that got rejected from the pack.
Yep.
Almost all wolves travel in packs, and there's a reason for that. So don't try and be a lone wolf and get eaten alive by yourself. Join a pack of men who have the same values and also hang out and can have fun together.
Exactly.
Like we've gotten to the point with Vanguard where we mess with each other now, and that's been a blast, just having fun, being goofy, but then also being able to support each other when we really need it.
Yeah.
So join that 21-day turnaround. Invite a friend. Go to www.21dayturnaround.com, 21turnaround.com. It's going to be awesome. You won't regret it. I've been working on growth for a long time. I don't regret doing it.
Yeah.
And so our challenge is for you to do it and even invite one of your friends. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving Man Podcast. If you want to check out more resources from David and Reese, you can go to thrivingman.com. We'll see you in the next episode.